UFC 314 is gonna be such a stacked card, and I can't wait for it. Of course, we'll be talking about the main events and the other bouts on the card as we get closer and closer to fight week, but today I wanted to examine the co-main, Paddy Pimblett versus Michael Chandler. And right out of the gates, I think Paddy has more keys to victory than Chandler. Now, when Michael Chandler burst onto the UFC, he was such a breath of fresh air. In his UFC debut, he finished Dan Hooker, which is no mean feat, solidifying himself as a top 10 contender in the lightweight division straight away. Chandler has since gone on to become a 50-50 fighter, winning some and losing some, but he's always been entertaining and has only lost to the best fighters in his weight class. Michael Chandler is relentless, he knows how to gut it out when a fight gets tough, and his striking is very solid, especially when you take into account that he's a shorter guy compared to most of his UFC opponents. He always has to get in close and turn things into a bit of a scrap when standing up, and it's fucking great to watch, to be fair. Chandler is also a very capable wrestler, but one thing I've noticed in most of his UFC fights is that he tends to get sloppy in the later rounds and he lets fights slip away from him. Sometimes he does this just to make the fans pop, like in the second Charlie Olives fight when he finally stands back up from getting taken down with Oliveira still on his back, to then just body slam him to the ground. Now that was so fucking cool, and the way he says fuck it beforehand, man, I never want this guy not to be fighting, but still, not the smartest move to do. Chandler is a fun fighter, but as the fight goes on, he seeks to please the crowd rather than fight intelligently. I bring all this up because Paddy could use this to his advantage. If this was a pure striking matchup, I would favor Michael Chandler 100%. I know this is a common criticism of his game, but Paddy leaves his chin all the way up in the air and his head is just waiting to get punched by a solid striker. Chandler can hit very fucking hard, so there's a possibility that Paddy leaves himself exposed and Chandler can land the big one to put Paddy's lights out. However, I think Paddy will understand the danger of trying to stand up with Chandler and will instead look to use his best asset, his insane jiu-jitsu skills. Paddy will absolutely show out in this fight and prove he's one of the best new top contenders in the division, and the key to doing this is with non-stop grappling. Go look at some Cage Warriors highlights and you'll see Paddy's incredible grappling capability. Of course, Chandler is way better than the guys from Cage Warriors, but still, we've seen Michael Chandler in the UFC. He's not immune to putting himself in really bad positions. In fact, he's susceptible to it, and I think Paddy will use that to his advantage like I said before. Paddy really showcased his jiu-jitsu during his last fight against Bobby Green, and to this day I have no idea what the latter's game plan was. Why would you ever try to take down a fighter like Paddy who wants nothing more to be on his back, looking for submissions on the ground? That's like if Ben Askren tried to have a kickboxing match with Leon Edwards. It's just not gonna fucking work out in his favor. I know Michael Chandler's wrestling is elite, but I still don't know if he's gonna want to take it to the ground with Paddy. Because Paddy knows how to get submission wins from the most weird positions, and it's gonna be so interesting to watch. So yeah, I predict Paddy will submit Michael Chandler and won't try to fuck around and strike with him early doors, because Chandler's stand-up is dangerous. I believe Paddy will be looking for the submission finish early on. If Paddy wins, then I would love to see a Charles Oliveira versus Paddy Pimblett fight. Oliveira is one of the most dynamic and flashy grapplers I've ever seen in the UFC, and in terms of pure jiu-jitsu, it would be such a tough test for Paddy, as good as his ground game is. Let me know your thoughts on Chandler vs Paddy. I'd love to hear from you guys whether you think I have this all wrong or if you see where I'm coming from. Either way, I'm super excited for UFC 314 and I'll catch you down the road.